He did not ask her the next morning. She had half expected him to. He had said, "Ask me properly," and he had looked at her with the expression that meant a decision had been crossed. And she had gone to bed in the East Wing thinking, tomorrow, probably. But tomorrow came and went with breakfast, and a call from the legal team, and a walk through the old quarter where she photographed a door that had been painted 7 different colors over the course of its life, and you could see all 7 in the peeling. And he held her hand the whole way and said nothing about the library. Nor the day after. She did not ask. She trusted the waiting because she had learned, across 16 days, that everything he did had timing that was considered rather than accidental. She trusted the timing the way she trusted light. It would arrive when it arrived, and it would be worth it. On the 3rd day, he said, over breakfast, "I need to go to New York." She looked at him. "When?" "Next week. There's a trade delegation meeting, preliminary, ahead of the formal agreement signing. I've been asked to lead it." A pause that had, she was learning to detect, a secondary layer. "It would be useful to see where you live." She looked at him steadily. "Useful," she said. "Informative," he amended. "You want to see New York." "I want to see your New York," he said, with the directness that was simply his nature when he had decided to be direct. "There's a distinction." She thought about her apartment, the photographs on the wall, 3 deep in places, the shelf of cameras with their various histories, the window that faced west and caught the late light in a way that had kept her in that apartment for 4 years past its usefulness on every other measure. She thought about him in that space, which required a small imaginative leap and then, once made, required no effort at all. He would stand at that window the way he stood at every window, looking out with the complete attention of someone who understood that places told you things if you gave them the chance. "Come to New York," she said. He came to New York on a Tuesday. She flew back 2 days earlier to prepare, which meant, in practice, doing laundry and buying bread and standing in her apartment looking at it through the eyes of someone arriving for the first time, which was both useful and slightly alarming. The apartment was small. It was densely inhabited by her work. There were photographs pinned to every available surface, 3 cameras on the kitchen shelf, a light box on the table she used as a desk, lenses in a rack by the door that visitors invariably knocked into. It was, she had always thought, a reasonable portrait of a person, organized around what mattered, uninterested in the decorative, alive in the specific way that spaces are alive when they are genuinely used. She looked at it and thought, he will understand this immediately. This steadied her considerably. Maya came over the night before he arrived, ostensibly to help prepare, and actually to conduct a thorough assessment of the situation from every angle available to her, which was all of them. She walked through the apartment once, looked at the photographs on the wall, picked up the scratched 50mm lens from the kitchen shelf, and turned it in her hands. "This is the lucky charm," she said. "It survived the compound," Lara said. "Right." Maya set it down carefully. She turned and looked at Lara with the full, focused warmth of 7 years and said, "You're going to be fine. You know that." "I know." "He's going to walk in here tomorrow and look at your photographs and understand every one of them, and you are going to be so annoyed at how right I was about all of this." "I'm already annoyed," Lara said. "It's a constant background condition." Maya smiled with the serenity of a woman whose record was, as Tariq had noted, unblemished. "Good," she said. "Now show me which photograph you're most nervous about him seeing." Lara looked at the wall. Second row, fourth from the left. Shot on the roof terrace of the palace on the morning of day 2, before she had any language for what she was doing. His back, ahead of her on the plateau slope, the line of his shoulders, his hand coming down to touch a particular stone in greeting. She had printed it at 8 by 10 and pinned it without quite consciously deciding to. "That one," she said. Maya looked at it for a long moment. "Lara," she said softly, "I know. That photograph is, I know. You were already in love with him when you took that." "I know," Lara said. "Don't tell him that." "He's going to see it on the wall and know without being told," Maya said. "I know," Lara said for the 5th time, and they looked at the photograph together in the New York apartment light and said nothing more about it. He arrived at 2 in the afternoon, direct from the delegation meeting in Midtown, still in the formal version of himself. Dark jacket, the composed bearing that belonged to rooms full of people watching him. She met him at the door, and the city noise came in with him, and he looked at her apartment for one complete, unhurried moment, the way he looked at everything that merited attention. And she watched him do it, and felt the rightness of her prediction. He understood it immediately. The photographs, the cameras, the lenses by the door. He read the space as a document and understood what it said. "This is where you work," he said. "This is where I live," she said. "They're the same place." He nodded, as though this confirmed something he had already known. Then he saw the wall. He moved toward it slowly, the way he moved toward things that deserved slowness, and looked at the photographs with the same quality of attention he had given her work on the camera screen in the plateau car, on the roof terrace, in the library. He moved along the wall, and she stood in the middle of the room and let him look. He stopped at the 2nd row, 4th from the left. He was quiet for a moment. Then he turned and looked at her across the room with an expression she had no name for and no longer needed one. It was simply his, simply true, the whole face in the New York afternoon light. "This is from the plateau," he said. "Day 2. "Yes. You kept it." "I printed it," she said, "and pinned it on the wall." "Before..." He paused. "Yes," she said, "before." He crossed the room toward her with the unhurried certainty that was simply how he moved when he had decided where he was going, and she stood in the middle of her apartment with its photographs and its cameras and its west-facing window catching the afternoon light, and he stopped in front of her and looked at her the way the watchtower looked at the desert, with 1,700 years of patience and the knowledge of what it had been waiting for. And she looked back at him, and the New York noise was outside, and the light was where it always was at this hour, and she thought, "This is the frame. This is the one that holds everything." He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket. He produced a small box, not velvet, not the formal architecture of jewelry presentation, but a plain dark wood box worn at the corners with age, the kind that had been in a family long enough to stop being an object and start being a fact. He held it for a moment without opening it. "This belonged to my mother," he said. "She left it to me when she died, with a note that said I would know when." He looked at Lara steadily. "I have known for some time. I was waiting until I could do this correctly. In your city, in your space, with adequate notice and no checkpoint involved." The almost smile, the real one, complete. "Lara Voss, I am not a man who does things hastily or without intention, and I want you to know that this is the most deliberate thing I have ever done." He opened the box. Inside, a ring of Zafaran gold set with a stone the color of the desert at the last moment before full dark. Amber and copper, and the thing between them that had no name. The color of the dress. The color of the hour. Will you marry me? Properly? With full notice and every intention, and as many days as we can make of it? She looked at the ring. She looked at him. She thought about the desert road and the wrong turn, and the warmth of a gun barrel, and 43 photographs, and a checkpoint, and a note about lamb, and a corridor at 2 a.m, and a kitchen table, and a plateau, and a watchtower still waiting, and all the frames she had kept, and all the ones she had stayed inside instead. She thought, I came to photograph ruins. She thought, I found the thing that was not ruined. Yes, she said, properly. He put the ring on her finger, and she looked at it in the afternoon light and thought, it fits. Which was either extraordinary coincidence or the universe being theatrical about things. And then she looked up at him, and he was looking at the ring on her finger with an expression of such complete and unguarded satisfaction that she laughed. The real laugh. The one that arrived before she could manage it. The one that was only ever his. And he looked at her, laughing, and the almost smile became the whole smile, became something she had no word for yet, and intended to spend a considerable amount of time developing vocabulary for. She called Maya from the kitchen 11 minutes later. Maya answered before the first ring had finished, which meant she had been holding the phone. Well, she said. Lara looked at the ring. She looked at Karim standing at the west-facing window, watching the New York afternoon light with the focused attention of a man who understood that places told you things. Full credit, Lara said. All of it. Every last bit. Maya made a sound that was somewhere between a sob and a victory cry, which was, Lara thought, the most Maya sound that had ever been made. Then she said at full volume, I need 6 months for the dress. You have whatever you need, Lara said. Good, Maya said, already planning, because I have opinions. Tariq called at 9 that evening, New York time, which was 3 a.m. in Zafaran. She answered on the second ring. You called him, she said. The moment I hung up with Maya, he said, without apology. How did he sound? Like himself, Tariq said, which she understood was the highest possible description. Not performing happiness, not performing composure, simply being the man he was and having that man be, for once, entirely at peace with what he was being. A pause. Also, Tariq said, and she could hear in his voice the thing beneath the lightness, the version of him that was entirely sincere. I need you to know something. I have been watching my brother for 6 years. I have watched him be careful and contained and responsible and alone, and I have watched him do all of those things excellently and without complaint. And I have watched what it cost him, which was considerable and which he would never say. Another pause. You should know that. She was quiet for a moment, in her New York kitchen with the ring on her finger, and Karim in the next room having discovered her photography books and apparently intending to read all of them. I know, she said softly. Thank you for telling me. Good, Tariq said. Then, in his normal voice, light restored. Also, I have very strong opinions about the wedding, and I expect to be consulted extensively. You will be, she said. I am never wrong about these things, he said, and hung up. Next chapter, Your New York. He stayed in New York for 10 days. She showed him her city the way he had shown her his desert. Not the official version, but the true one. He photographed nothing and saw everything.